welcome everyone to another Conversations in the Void. I am Graveyard, here as always, every Wednesday night with my off-screen producer, Salem. Make sure to hit him up in the chat, say hi to Salem. He'll be our timekeeper for tonight. But without further ado, I've had the distinct pleasure of interviewing this gentleman earlier past year, and he is on here. We're going to talk all things horror, but also talk about his series, Night of the Chihuahuas. I have all four of them here, and I cannot wait to discuss more horror, more gore, more Chihuahuas. So without further ado, David Quiroz Jr.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. I mean, other than my kitchen sink being horribly clogged up right now, just fine.
Oh, that's terrible. I just dealt with that. It's funny that you mention it. My wife was shoving every vegetable she could down there because she's like, well, we have garbage disposal. I'm like, honey. So I had to take out the U-shaped pipe at the bottom and dig them all out. So if that's what you're in for, I apologize.
My wife likes to shove everything into the sink, and we don't have a garbage disposal. So. But enough about that type of horror that we have to deal with. So getting to know you a little bit, we asked some easy opening questions here about horror. What really brought you, David, into the world of horror as a whole?
It's funny because it's one of those things that, like, I look back and I mean, from the time I was a little kid, I've always been fascinated by horror. Like when I was a kid, it was like the scary stories you tell in the dark with the old school Alvin Schwartz drawings that were like giving kids nightmares and stuff. Like it's like just drawn to it. And I distinctly remember the first time that I wrote a short story, like, just in a notebook, in like a lined notebook. And I wrote it, and the reaction I got from people once they read it and they were like, whoa, that's freaky. I went to a Catholic school, and the nuns called my parents and were like, hey, we need to perform an exorcism on your kid. He's pretty messed up. But like eliciting those reactions out of people, even I was like 8. And then I had a wayward, like I was probably to be honest with you, I was probably shown some movies that I was not ready for at the time. Like I watched Dawn of the Dead, the 78 version of George Romero. I watched that when I was probably like 6. And I don't think, like, as a parent, I would not let my 6-year-old kids watch that nowadays. But I think like being exposed to stuff like that so young, just instead of repulsing me, it was like, okay, this is terrifying and freaky. And now it's making me ponder all these like bigger thoughts about existence and things, because now I'm watching that we are essentially just meat and guts and organic matter, and not like I don't know, you think that you're invincible at that age, and then you see mortality on screen like that, and the fact that it's a little scary, and it's just, I don't know, always been into it.
Oh yeah. I'm my off-screen producer Salem and I, we are the same way. We watch horror movies from a really stupid young age too. Yeah, and we all turn out just fine, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, right? I mean, look at me now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, for me, I remember seeing The Curse of Michael Myers when I was like 11. And then
nice.
We had my friend a video camera, so we started playing Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers and making skits of that at that age. So
that's so awesome. I love that movie.
Oh yeah, it's great. But do you think Dawn of the Dead was your first horror movie that you recall? Do you recall what you?
Yep.
Okay, that's a great first one.
Vividly remember, we did a double feature that night. It was Dawn of the Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Just once again, for a 6-year-old kid, I can't imagine what my uncle was thinking when he let me watch those. But it was like no going back from there.
Yeah, that's great. Like I said, I think my first one was maybe Jaws, obviously, as most people start, but Child's Play for me when it came out in '88. Wow.
And that one too, as a youngster, man, it's a great movie and it holds up really well, I think. But like as a kid, it was freaky as hell. Freaky.
Oh yeah. My 2 older sisters were terrified, and they're 4 and 8 years older than me. I was 4 watching it, and I was absolutely fine.
Oh, that's so cool.
But speaking of Child's Play and stuff like that, what do you think, in your opinion, David, is the most overrated horror IP out there? Whether it's a comic book, TV show, movie.
I am going to get roasted for this, and I'm ready for it. Bring your hate. I will absorb it. Terrifier. I don't get it. And I think Art the Clown is like a really cool looking thing. But like, I watched those movies and I was just like, they're okay. They're fine. But the fact that they have such a legion of followers and like people that like dedicate themselves to it and like wear the t-shirts and like do all the stuff, like, I don't get it, man. There's like so many mediocre slasher movies out there that, why did none of them get picked up? Like, I think it's just the clown, I mean, it is David Thornton, the actor, is like, he has got a really good look and stuff. And, but beyond that, like, there's nothing to those movies. I've seen gorier movies. I've seen way, more disturbing movies. I've seen just like, it just the confluence of all these things just happen to hit at the right time. And just not for me, it's just not my scene. I like slasher movies. I think that there's I really enjoy, like, certain extreme moments in slasher movies and in horror movies in general, but like, it just, I don't know, nothing about it felt, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like when I was in high school and I was like, I'm listening to metal and I'm like, not to sound too much like an edgelord, but like, all of a sudden, like, Korn came out and all these kids were like, dude, Quiroz, do you listen to Korn? Because these guys are so hardcore. And I was like, they're fine, but like, you're coming to me, talking to me when I've just, I'm wearing like a Cannibal Corpse t-shirt and stuff. And it's like, it just feels like very much like new metal compared to like classics thing. And I just, but if it gets people into horror, that's fine. And if people love it, that's fine. But like, I just don't get it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I watched it because people are like, "Oh, this is the most gory, gruesome movie you've ever seen." And I watched 1 and 2, and I'm like, "Did I miss the gory part?" Like, like, what scene are people? I legit had to look it up. Like, what scene are they talking about? And they go, "Oh, she, when he sawed her in half in the first one." I go, "Seen that?" That's.
It's like there's a scene in a movie called Bone Tomahawk. It's like a Western. And that had a way more intense, gory scene. And that, it was a good movie too. But like, I don't know. I did, once again, I don't, these are people that are horror fans too, that just love it. So it's not like it's like people who've never seen anything like this before. So I don't know. What do I know? Right.
Well, I really think for me, it's very reminiscent of 80s slashers. And I think it's nostalgia at this point in time because we don't have our Freddy's. We don't have our Jasons anymore. Realistically, we haven't had them in 13 years plus at this point in time. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Could be. And I mean, it's got like a certain like kind of gritty, grimy aesthetic that I appreciate, even though I think they shot them both digital, but you can kind of tell, but they do a pretty good job of making you feel very dingy. And it's not like a Henenlotter movie or anything like that. Like, it's not like, it kind of evokes those vibes without going all the way there. But like, I can, if somebody tells me why they dug it, I guess I could understand a little bit, but like the fandom that it has, the fact that there's some of these t-shirts mainstream, the fact that like Hot Topic carries these, which perhaps that sentence right there encapsulates everything about, why I'm not into it. But yeah, just, I don't
Oh yeah. I agree with you. Like I said, our hot take is always Exorcist for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the new one really sucked, but
yes.
I don't know, man. That movie's a classic, and I think that there's so many parts of it that make it what it is, and sort of like a stand out from like that 70s auteur scene, and the fact that it was not somebody who did a lot of horror movies, and I don't know, man. I would strongly disagree with that one. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, we get crap for it all the time, so we're okay with it.
But it's art. Art is subjective, and there's no right answer. It's not like you can say like you are right or you are wrong for your opinion. Everybody's opinion is valid, and whether something worked for them or not. And I think I haven't seen Exorcist in about 10 years, so maybe I should go back and rewatch it with an eye towards like, does this hold up, or is it just because it was the first of its kind, because it was like such a spit in the face of the establishment and of our cultural and social and religious norms and all these things, and like, I don't know, maybe it as just a movie for a horror fan, maybe it doesn't quite hold up like that. I'd be interested to go back and rewatch it, so maybe I'll do that this weekend.
Yeah, do that, because we just did that.
New one was terrible.
We watched all 6 in a row. So
does part 3 hold up? Because part 3, I remember being like really enjoying that one. Just like not going into it thinking I was going to enjoy it, and I was like, whoa, this was pretty badass. And it's got Fabio. It's just really bizarre.
In heaven. Yeah. All right. So what do you think is on the other side of the coin here is the most underrated IP in horror that doesn't get enough love that it should?
Okay. This, I should have been more prepared for this answer, because there's a lot of horror movies. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I don't understand why there's not 6 of those movies. I freaking love that movie. I thought it was such a good deconstruction of the slasher movie while being its own unique take on the IP. I thought the acting was all great. I thought the killer's look was cool. I thought Nathan Basil did a great job as that slasher. The fact that it came out, and actually, you know, what's funny is I met Nathan Basil fairly recently, and we were talking about it, and I told him, like, you know, basically that movie and Hatchet came out the exact same time. Hatchet got 4 sequels. Rise of Leslie or Behind the Mask got none. And he was like, you know, telling me, he was like, basically like, well, you know, if you think about it, like Hatchet is a very simple movie. It's super simple. You pitch it in one sentence. Behind the Mask is not a simple movie. Is it a mockumentary? Is it a satire? Is it, you know, it kind of does a lot of things, and it's not as digestible. And so you couldn't just crank out, you know, 90-minute sequels to that thing, like as a standard slasher movie, because it's not a standard slasher movie. And so I thought it was a really good take. And I, you know, is it unfortunate? It absolutely is. But I understand why it's a little bit harder to digest, harder for people to just dive into it. And so if I had like $100 million, I would freaking make those. I would buy the rights to that and make them myself. But I really loved it.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and I love it. And I think what Hatchet comes down to is Kane Hodder killing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's awesome. And the gore effects were really good. And it's, you know, Hatchet, it's kind of like Terrifier to me. Hatchet is a good movie. It's very cool. It's got some fun moments. I didn't get the, you know, the PR machine. I mean, Adam Green's got a really good PR machine. He is a really good PR machine. But like he did a good job of marketing it and getting it in front of people and, like, you know, firing up horror fans. But like, I don't know. At the end of the day, it was just a slasher movie. And I didn't think it was anything great, but I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. So those are the easy questions. Let's get into a little bit about David and kind of talk about Nine Chihuahuas and some of the other projects that you have worked on. So on the topic of horror stuff, you know, I started listening to the Red Riding Hoods podcast, the season 1.
Man, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, I mean, the premise is fantastic. All final girls and put it into the world. And Scott, what made you decide to do it as a scripted horror podcast, say, versus a TV show or movie or anything like that?
So it was written as a TV pilot. I won a bunch of awards and placed in a whole bunch of screenplay competitions with it. It actually got optioned by a production company in Canada, and we had a showrunner, we had producer, we had like all these people attached to it. And I was like, you know, here it comes. And as happens in Hollywood, nothing, even if it was in Vancouver, not Hollywood, but you know what I mean? Like in the entertainment industry, you know, shit's not real until the check clears. And it just basically never went anywhere. The production company ended up getting bought out by new investors, and the new investors wanted to become reality. And then once that pilot left, it was like, at the time, that's when streaming was really starting to pick up, and all of a sudden there was like a flood of content that we were just behind, and it never went anywhere. And I pitched that thing so many times. I was in so many meetings, meeting with so many people, and I would always talk about, you know, when you create a TV show, you have to have a pilot episode, and then you have to, or at the time anyway, this is like kind of before a lot of the Netflix stuff became as mainstream as it is, but like you had to have 5 seasons planned. You had to be able to say, this is where the story is going to go in 5 seasons. And of course, Netflix will cancel you after 2, so it's a little bit different nowadays. But I always had that story built out and developed, and I was like, you know, it would like keep me up at night knowing that I was never going to be able to write the rest of it because it's so fleshed out in my head and everything. And then a company called Violet Hour Media hit me up, and they were like, hey, we read the script, we love it, we're trying to break the mold of podcasts. We're doing fiction podcasts that aren't just like a narrator telling a story. You know, we really want to like transform what a podcast can be and have like big casts and sound effects and like all these cool things. You know, we think that this would be a really great project. Would you be interested? And I thought about it for a little while because, you know, of course you're like, oh man, it's a TV pilot though. It's not an audio book. And in your head as a writer, you think like, you know, TV pilot and audio thing down here. And it almost feels like, is it worth scaling it back? But then after that, we were like, you know, I don't know, man, it was worth telling the story, and I wanted to flesh out that world. And so that's where I just said, you know, let's go for it. And kudos to Cassie Josepho from Violet Hour for believing in it, and the director Sarah Joy Brown was a soap opera actress, and so she brought in a really talented cast of established actors and actresses. And it's kind of fun because nowadays we'll watch, like, my kids will be watching something and I'll point out, I'll be like, oh, that person was so-and-so in the Red Riding Hoods. And my daughter's always like, what? And I don't know. It was cool. It was a really fun journey. It was a really cool project, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, anyone listening right now or later on, make sure to go check it out, Red Riding Hoods. I think anywhere you get your podcasts. I don't want to spoil anything for it, but is there ever potential for season 2?
It gets talked about. Unfortunately, it was a little bit of a pricey. Once again, Violet Hour was trying to break the envelope or break the mold with audio podcast. It was pricier to produce than a lot, and so it did really well. I mean, we had like over 150,000 listeners, which is phenomenal to me. But we need more, and it's the director. I went and hung out with her in LA, and she really wants to do a second season. And she says that all the actors and actresses were her friends, so she could bring them back absolutely. And we still talk about it. There is a season 2 written, but whether or not it gets produced is unfortunately above my pay grade.
Yeah, because I'd love to see this as a TV show too. Honestly, as an option TV show and keep it going. I'd hope you'd want to then create it as a TV show as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Violet Hour has the rights to it, and I know that they've been in talks with some people, but whether or not it goes anywhere, with the writer's strike having just ended, there's a glut of content right now of everybody that had been writing over the strike has now got all of their projects out there. So once the streaming era kind of gets figured out, we'll see if we can find a home for it. But I mean, that'd be pretty awesome. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be, I think, on place on Shudder too. I mean, they need new content.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're listening, Shudder, call me.
Exactly. I also watched your shorts that you wrote, correct? You have the After Dark, and then you have the Strangers, the Origins, right?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to write those and work with a local director by the name of Jacob Owens, who's a super talented guy. And I've written a few things for him, and we've got some other ones in development, but we'll see. Hopefully we can get some more going in 2024.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I know a couple of people that do indie horror movies, so if you ever want to do an indie project, let me know. They're by me and one in Reno, so we can talk after that.
Very cool. Yeah, I got a couple contained ones. I was trying to write for like a much lower budget, and then I was thinking to myself, like, these are ones that I'll do. And then unfortunately, it's been so long since I've gotten behind the camera, directed anything, and I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'd be the best person to do it anymore. And so I'm trying to find people who have similar mindsets that want to create something fun, independent, have a story to tell, have something to say, and working within the confines, because it's crazy out there. And anybody who's done independent film knows that that's been the case forever. And right now, especially, it's a little scary.
Right now, Night of the Chihuahuas, that was your movie that you made before, 2004, I believe?
2004, man. It's
yes. So I know we talked about this on other stuff. What prompted you to go from the movie into issue number 5 being Kickstarter right now of Night of the Chihuahuas?
Yeah, so basically when the movie was written, I had this idea, and I was like, I don't know, I'd lived in LA and I was working as an assistant for studio films, and basically just becoming more and more to hate Los Angeles, hate the studio system. And I was like, you know what? At the time they were making a bunch of like straight to video horror films that were shot on video, and they were getting picked up by like Hollywood Video and Blockbuster and getting released nationwide. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go home back to Arizona. I'm going to buy a video camera and I'm going to make a feature film. And I wrote a script, and I committed every screenwriting crime you can commit. I said it at night. I featured animals. I did like all these special effects, like all these things that you should never do. And quickly realized that, we weren't going to be able to pull this off. So we shot the feature. We did finish it, but like never went anywhere. It's got an IMDb page for some reason, but we sat on it, and then every time I would tell people about this, they would always say, like, that's such a cool concept, you got to figure out a way to bring that to life. And it wasn't going anywhere as a film, but I'm getting more into comic books because I've been a comic fan since my whole life. And I was like, as I'm reading more comic books, I'm thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, let me talk to some artists and see if anybody's interested in helping me get this on the page, because you can do all the things that you want. It's like, it's just limited by the artist's creativity. So we definitely got out there. Once I put the project together, it just kind of flowed naturally, and the audience has really picked it up. And we did we did issue 1 like long time ago, man. And then we lost the artist because he got very talented dude and he got picked up by a bigger project. And so, you know, you can't hate the guy for that. It's just part of independent art. And so it took us a while to kind of get our feet back under us, but we were able to get it finished. And getting to the finish line and coming across it like this is like mind blowing, because it's been such a long process. I mean, like you said, 2004 since this idea began to now. It's like art is one thing, but business and the business of filmmaking, of creation, of like comic books, of anything that you're going to produce, it's such a grind, and you really have to love it. You really have to be willing to hustle and be willing to persevere, because everything is going to try to stop you from doing it. And that's been the case with this comic book. But the response that we've gotten from the issues and the Kickstarter already has just been humbling, and kind of, it's so nice to see that there's an audience for it. You know, it's really amazing to me. It still is.
Oh yeah. So I have a set. I gave my off-screen producer a set of the comics as well. So
thank you.
So I have them right here. We discussed. You know, I'm not always the biggest comic person. I'm on and off, but like I said, this stuff I had to back immediately. I just loved everything about. Now, issue number 5 is the last of this series, if correct.
Correct. Of the first series. So there is, this concludes the main storyline. It's like basically, you know, the survivors they're all trapped in a house and they're surrounded by killer Chihuahuas. And in issue 5, the Chihuahuas, you know, not spoiling anything crazy, but the Chihuahuas get in, mayhem ensues. It is the bloodiest, the most action-packed issue of the whole series. And it really ends in if I do say so myself, I am certainly biased, but, you know, it ends with a pretty amazing finale that, you know, everybody that's been a fan of the series I believe will be very happy with what goes down in those pages. And then we set up a second series that we're already working on.
Oh, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited to see how the series ends. I'm more in the Chihuahua verse. Like that. So with the gore and stuff like that, with this episode or issue 5 being the most explosive, gory thing, is there anything that you say that's too far or not far enough in the art?
We didn't really go too far with it. I was heavily influenced by, you know, once again, the movies I grew up watching. And so Dawn of the Dead, this certainly, like, as a kid, I remember how vivid these memories are of like watching, like, because Romero's, it was Tom Savini's special effects, and like his movies are just so amazingly gory with the gore, and like the zombies like sinking their fingers into intestines and like pulling them from the people. And so I wanted to recapture that with the dogs, and we play it pretty, I don't even want to say tame, because it's killer Chihuahuas like ripping people into pieces. But in the second series, we are going to toy with a little bit more of like, you know, okay, you've already seen people get their legs ripped off, you've seen people get ripped in half. What if we do this? Because, you know, of course, with horror, you have to keep pushing the envelope. You have to, you know, the audience they become numb to this level of action and gore and intensity. You have to kick it up a little bit, but do it in a way that serves the story. That's not just like, okay, we get it, you guys are so edgy. It's got to be something that is, you know, organic to the material.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, I love, you know, the artwork on here, because usually a lot of your stuff is homages to other horror property, and I love seeing that. For anyone that picks this up, other Easter eggs to horror movies in these?
Yes. Well, okay, so a lot of Easter eggs to the Resident Evil video games. There's like 3 of them in there that, you know, people have already brought up to me. They're like, oh, were you trying to do this? I'm like, obviously I was trying to do that. Come on. It's like pretty obvious. Night of the Living Dead was a huge inspiration. Down to the black and white artwork. You know, I really wanted this to be a black and white book specifically because of Night of the Living Dead and because of what an influence that was. Even the title, you know, Night of the Chihuahuas. Eight-Legged Freaks had a lot of influence there, which was shot here in my backyard in Arizona. I think that's a really underrated. That's another one of those underrated movies. I think I love it. And so there's a lot of like little homages I try to work in here and there, but paying, you know, obviously respecting all the things that came before me that heavily influenced this.
Right. And is there ever a chance of revisiting Night of the Chihuahuas, the movie?
Somebody pays me enough money, I will absolutely. I would love to see it get people every now and then I'll get an email from somebody who's like, hey, what would you sell the rights for or whatever. And there is an audience for it. As is evidenced by this comic book series and how successful it's been as an indie comic book that we're just doing, kind of pounding the pavement and shaking hands and moving copies ourselves. But it's obviously like we have so many people stop by our table. Every comic convention we go to, every fan expo, every horror con, everything. We have so many people stop by our booth and just tell us like how cool of a concept that is. Whether they buy it or not, that's kind of irrelevant at that point because it's put a smile on my face. Just seeing like the reaction that we're getting. And so I think that there is, I'm hoping that now that we've got 5 issues, the first storyline done, it's going to be able to be put into a trade paperback in the future. We're going to be able to get it into more people's hands and get the attention of the right people. I myself will not be making it unless, I win the lottery or something because it's a huge project. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see it get picked up for sure.
Yeah, and last I talked to Nate, I believe this is in at least 8 states at this point in time, right? The comic book.
Yes, I think we might be up a little bit more than that. We're in like 50 stores across the nation and in many different states, and we even got international in Vancouver. So it was, quite a few. It's all organic. It's all just word of mouth, people telling their friends, going to these shows and meeting people who own stores in the area and stuff like that. So, it's growing and the feedback has been awesome.
Yeah, like I said, it's a fantastic series. Like I said, I can't praise this enough. I love the series.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like I said, I have so many questions for you, but we are just this time goes by so fast for me. How about you?
I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. All good. Do you think that having the comic, you're able to get shots established in the panels that you would not be able to do in a movie or TV show?
For sure. And it's been writing a comic book was not difficult for me because it's basically like storyboarding a film, and it's establishing what perspective we have, why are we showing the panel from this point of view, doing this, and then it's like working with an artist is like working with your director of photography. The director of photography is going to say, well, it would look way cooler if we do this, and so you've got to make sure that both of you are getting what you want out of this, and that it's once again ultimately serving the story. It's like sometimes the DP will say, well, we should do this and this and this because it looks so amazing. Yeah, but that doesn't make sense for the story. So let's compromise and figure out a way to to showcase your talents while still not going crazy overboard to show off kind of thing. So and also always you're always remembering the audience because the reader of the comic book, comics are a visual medium just like movies are a visual medium, and it's like, how is this panel the most visually dynamic way to tell this part of the story and to impress the reader kind of thing. So
now with your movie that you had done with these panels, would you then merge them into like the comics become the storyboard, kind of like the Frank Miller effect of comic books becoming movies?
Yeah, so the storyboards for Night of the Chihuahuas, the independent film that we shot in like 2003, 2004, those storyboards went out the window because we were shooting in locations that like dictate. Is like I had this idea and then you get to set and it's like, crap, okay, there's a wall right here. There's or somebody kicked us out of their house. Now we have to shoot here, and it throws everything off. And so those storyboards went out the window. This is, if the movie were to get made, I would hope that we could do like a kind of like Sin City, where it's like just you're just taking the comic book and you're putting it on screen, and that'd be amazing. But we'll see.
Would the movie be black and white?
I would fight for that, but I have a feeling it would be more marketable if it was in color.
Yeah. Well, then you have the color one, and then you release the chrome and black or the chrome
like I've got the Mist DVD, and they've got the black and white feature on it, and it's so cool. I still like to watch it that way.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like I said, time's gonna fly. Let's get into our finished question. I'd love to have you back on too at some other point when you're free to discuss more horror. We can just nerd out in horror all you want.
Absolutely.
So what, David, is your favorite scary movie? Is it Night of the Living Dead?
Either that or Candyman, the 1995 version. I loved the reboot of Candyman, the latest one. I thought it was great. But the original is it's a masterpiece in my opinion. Philip Glass's score, the direction, Tony Todd's performance. I mean, Virginia Madsen's performance. I think that movie is a fucking masterpiece. And I've gotten a really big arguments with like film nerds about its artistic merits, but it's amazing. And that's honestly, it's like, it depends. It's either Candyman, Night of the Living Dead, or The Orphanage, the Spanish movie that came out about 10 years ago. Those are my 3 favorite scary movies.
Oh yeah, I mean, where I'm from, I'm by Chicago area, so Candyman is near and dear to people's hearts here because it's Chicago, right? So it's Child's Play. So.
Oh, it's so great.
All right, so in your opinion, practical or CGI for horror movies?
Practical. If you're doing CGI, we should be afraid, or we should be thrilled by what is on screen. We should not be thinking to ourselves, wow, that's a great special effect. As soon as we think that's a great special effect, you have pulled us out of the thing, and it's like, the best CGI, I don't think it can compare to the best practical still to this day. And it's, even if some people like, I don't know, thing is, you're trying to make it look more realistic when you're CGI, and it totally does not serve that effect at all. If it looks like latex, if it looks like, we can see the hinges and stuff like that, it's still serving like that thrill and that kind of, that crazy, getting into your head thing. Then a CGI just looks like computer graphics. So no, I'm still not on board with that.
Oh yeah, I agree. Practical, you always talk to people like, how do they do that? How do they pull that off? Like you're right. It's a more mind questioning thing of how they're able to get that shot, because it's so amazing that they're able to get it at all versus a guy or 30 guys sitting at a computer. You're like, all right, this blood's going to go over here and it's going to splash here. And unfortunately, blood has been awful in horror movies for CGI.
Yes. I'm guilty of having tried to use it in some independent features, and it never comes out good. It's a mistake for sure.
All right. So you said before, if you could work in any IP or franchise, it would be Behind the Mask, right? Is there any other franchise you want to work in?
Call of Cthulhu. I would love to bring that to life, but not if James Wan is doing it. He's a great director. I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with it, but it's a cosmic horror film, and I'm very afraid that he's just going to turn it into a kaiju movie, which it's not. I've always argued Cthulhu is a concept. It's like, it's not a monster that you try to fight. It's a concept that you can't come to terms with, that you struggle to come to terms with, because it represents your cosmic insignificance. And so I would love to be able to tackle the IP with that in mind, instead of just trying to create this $100 million CGI epic film, which I'm afraid is going to happen. But I like James Wan's movies, and so I'm definitely willing to give it a shot, but I'm very leery about it as well.
What'd you think of Cthulhu in the movie Underwater?
I like that movie because it's a good underwater horror film. The inclusion of Cthulhu felt very third act, that had not been set up properly as far as madness inducing elder gods from the deep kind of thing. It was just oh, this is a cool monster, let's call it Cthulhu. It felt very tacked on, and I think if I remember right, the director even admitted that was a last minute decision to make it Cthulhu. And they even when she looks at the Notebook, you can see they CGI'd H.P. Lovecraft's drawing of Cthulhu onto the page. So it was fun, but I still enjoy that movie. I thought it was a cool movie, but when they revealed Cthulhu at the end, I was like, doesn't really fit. Still cool. It looks cool.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're right. We call it in our podcast the Hellraiser syndrome, where they make a separate movie and they go, you know what? We need associated IP on this. We'll throw a pin in here for 20 seconds. Hellraiser.
Yep. It's what's the cheapest screenplay we can produce right now? Can we fit Hellraiser in the last 2 pages? Done. That's how we're going to keep our Hellraiser franchise going.
or call it the Cloverfield effect, if you will.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Same thing.
Yeah. All right. So, Dave, any advice for people getting into the field, whether it's writing, whether it's creating comics?
Have thick skin, be humble, be willing to collaborate, and be ready to grind, because it's not for the weak of heart. It's not an easy thing. And if you don't love it, when I was a teacher for a long time, I'm a writing teacher and stuff. And I would always tell the students, listen, if there's anything else you'd rather do with your life, go do it. Because unless this is all you want to do, you're going to find too many reasons to quit, because you're going to get doors slammed in your face. You're going to get no's. You're going to get projects stall out. You're going to get projects that never start. And unless you love it, it will be impossible to keep with it. So, follow this if you love it, and be ready to work your ass off to make it. Because if you're not working your ass off, somebody else is, and this is a very, there's a very limited number of eyes available for any project. So got to work hard and, be humble and willing to collaborate, because it's truly a collaborative process. It's film is collaborative. Comic books are collaborative as well, unless you're doing the art and the writing yourself. But if you're a writer, and you need a great artist, and if you're an artist, you need a great writer, and you got to be willing to compromise on some things and to see what the other person's vision is, and work with somebody who has the same vision as you as much as possible, because that's a great partnership.
Awesome. That is great advice.
Thank you.
All right, you ready for your random horror trivia?
Let's do it.
What European director of the classic 1977 film Suspiria is known as the Italian Hitchcock?
Dario Argento.
Yes. Awesome. Got it right. All right.
All right.
So, David, before we sign out here, give us your plugs. Where can people find you and the work in Night of Chihuahuas?
Hey, man. I know that we've got the Kickstarter is scrolling right now. Our website is just nightofthechihuahuas.com. So if you want to get the first 4 issues, they're available on our website. You can follow me. I'm most active on Instagram, which I know that we follow each other on Instagram. Yeah. I kind of left Twitter behind because it became a just crazy hell state. And then that's really about the only social media I'm doing anymore. So spelling of my name, David Quiroz Jr. On Instagram. That's the most active that I am.
Awesome. And for anyone interested, I also have David's link tree in the description of this video. So make sure to check out everything he does. So thank you, David, for coming on. If you want to stick around a little bit after the show, we can talk if you have some time. But I've been Graveyard. Thank you once again to David for joining us on the Conversations in the Void. It was a blast. Make sure to follow us on all social media at Pod Out at Night and our new venture, Horror/Raven. Yes, Raven is spelled incorrectly for a reason. Well, we are doing content creation and short films and working on feature films as well. So make sure to check that out. And we'll see you next time. And don't get lost in the void. Good night.